You broke chains built for soldiers 3 times your size. So tell me, what are you?
Cole Ashworth woke to the hum of unfamiliar engines and the cold bite of restraint cuffs biting into his wrists. The last thing he remembered was the transport shuttle breaking apart over the ice moon of Cassandra, alarm screaming, and then nothing but white light. Now he stood in a vast hangar bay, steel grating beneath his boots, the air thick with ozone and the metallic tang of foreign machinery. Massive dropships lined the walls, their hulls stenciled with symbols he didn't recognize. Armored soldiers flanked him on either side, faceless behind matte helmets, rifles held with the practiced ease of men who had done this 1,000 times. He yanked at the cuffs. Sparks hissed where the restraint field met his skin, but the metal didn't budge. "Where am I?" he growled, though he doubted anyone would answer. Someone did. "You are aboard the Valkyra, soldier." The voice belonged to a woman stepping out from behind the line of guards. She was young, maybe 25, with braided platinum hair that fell past her shoulders and eyes the pale blue of glacier ice. She wore banded silver armor etched with looping alien script, each plate catching the hangar lights like polished bone. "And you are a long way from your world." Cole studied her. Whatever she wasn't human, not entirely. The angles of her face were too precise, her skin faintly luminous beneath the fluorescence, like moonlight caught under glass. "Who are you?" he asked. "Isolde Vaelith," she said. "Third daughter of the Threndri Accord. And you are the first of your kind we have ever taken alive." Before Cole could respond, heavy footsteps echoed down the gantry. A towering figure emerged from the shadows between 2 dropships, broad-shouldered, plated in dark battle armor scarred from decades of war, a jagged scar running from temple to jaw. This was Commander Threx Kaal, and the hangar seemed to shrink around his presence. He stopped a few feet from Cole and tilted his head, studying him the way a scientist studies a specimen. "Report says your shuttle crossed the boundary alone," Threx said, his voice a low rumble. "No fleet. No signal. Just you, drifting in a coffin of scrap metal." He circled Cole slowly. "We've fought your kind before. Soldiers. Machines wearing skin. But you..." He stopped in front of Cole, close enough that Cole could see the reflective plating around his eyes. "You broke my binding chains with your bare hands. No implants. No augmentation core. Nothing but muscle and bone." Cole said nothing. His arms still ached from the effort. The chains had been laced with a suppression current meant to drop a man twice his size. Threx leaned in. "What are you?" The question hit harder than it should have. Cole opened his mouth to answer. "Human." That was the answer, the only answer, but the word caught somewhere behind his teeth. What was he really to these people? A curiosity, a threat, a variable in an equation he didn't understand. He had no framework to explain himself to a species that measured strength in ways he couldn't fathom. "I don't know what you want me to say," Cole finally managed. Isolde stepped between them, laying a hand on Threx's forearm. "Let me speak with him." Threx's jaw tightened, but he stepped back, gesturing for the guards to lower their weapons. "You have until the tribunal convenes. After that, Commander, this decision is out of my hands." He turned and strode away, boots ringing against the deck plating. Isolde waited until he was gone before she reached up and, with a small device pressed to the restraint cuffs, released them. Cole rubbed his wrists, startled. "Why would you do that?" "Because I don't think you're a weapon," she said. "I think you're a man who got lost." She studied him with an intensity that made him feel, for the first time since waking, less like a prisoner and more like a person. "On my world, we have a saying, strength without context is just noise. You broke chains built to hold soldiers 3 times your size, Yet you stand here asking questions instead of taking hostages. That tells me more about you than any scan could. So, what happens now? Now, you convinced the tribunal what you convinced me. Her eyes softened, just slightly. That you are not the invasion they fear. That your world sent no armies. Only you, and only by accident. 3 days passed in a holding chamber that was, if not comfortable, at least not cruel. Isolde visited often, asking about Earth, about family, about the ache of being the only one of his kind for 100 light years. Cole found himself talking more than he had in years, and somewhere in those long conversations, the fear in her guard's eyes began to fade into something closer to curiosity. On the 4th day, the tribunal convened in a circular chamber beneath the ship's spine, a dozen Threndery elders seated around a ring of pale light. Threx stood among them, arms crossed, unreadable. Cole was brought before the ring. He had no rehearsed speech, no diplomat's polish, only the truth. "I don't know what I am to you," he said, his voice steady despite the weight of every eye in the room. "But I know what I'm not. I'm not here to conquer. I'm not a soldier sent to test your defenses. I'm just a man who fell out of the sky, and the only reason I'm still breathing is that one of you chose to see me as more than a threat before I could prove otherwise." Silence stretched. Then Threx uncrossed his arms and stepped forward. "When I asked what you are," he said, "I expected an answer built on power. Instead, you gave me one built on restraint." He turned to the elders. "I vote for return passage. Under escort, under watch, but alive." The vote passed unanimously. Weeks later, standing in the same hangar where he had first woken in chains, Cole faced Isolde one final time before boarding the shuttle that would carry him home. "You never did answer his question," she said. "What are you?" Cole managed a small, tired smile. "Still figuring that out. But whatever I am, I'm grateful it was you who asked." As the shuttle doors sealed and the Valkyra fell away behind him, Cole understood that he was carrying home more than his own survival. He was carrying proof that first contact didn't have to end in war, only in the courage to ask the right questions and the wisdom to wait for real answers.